Hello, welcome. We are talking about this Aries full supermoon happening on October 6th or 7th, depending on where you are in the world, at 14 degrees of Aries. The sky is loud and your body is definitely listening. Hi, I'm Vanessa Rodriguez, Akashic Channel intuitive guide and clinically trained healer, devoted to helping you remember your purpose, reclaim your gifts, and walk your sovereign path. And this is a Feed Your Wild podcast episode, special Moon Musing edition. Okay, let's just begin by taking a nice deep breath, shall we? Unclench your jaw. Feel your feet, whether you're on the ground, in the car, in your home. Feel the support that is beneath you. We have moved through so much over the past few months. We are technically officially out of the eclipse season, and we have had quite a swirly, whirly experience with these eclipses the past few lunations. So this is the first full moon, super full moon, that we don't have that same influence of the eclipses. So it might feel a little bit less intense. And this lunation, being a super full moon, just as with all full moons, is a really big full moon. And what do full moons indicate and bring? A culmination point, a spotlight, a shining, a light on something, an illumination of something. So we are being brought to awareness and things are being brought to light, as well as culmination points when there is that full moon energy. Now, this is a me versus we kind of moon because it's on the Aries-Libra axis. We have the moon happening at 14 degrees of Aries, and the sun is at 14 degrees of Libra. Aries says, here I am. Hello world, right? And Libra is more about the we. It's wondering, how do we? How do we be? How do we do? How do we do this thing together? So put those two in a room and you're going to get some pretty honest conversations happening there. You know, Libra loves to talk and converse and to collaborate in that way. And these conversations can be tender. It could be spicy with some Aries energy here. Either way, I feel that this is really meant to clear the air, to bring things to full light so that they can be cleared. Now, you want to note the house that this is happening in. So check for 14 degrees of Aries in your chart. And then the sun, of course, in Libra. So that axis is the story that is playing out in whatever area of your life that is indicated. So for example, it could be identity and relationship here. If you're Aries rising, it's your first house. And then Libra we have as your seventh house of relationships. It could be flipped. Maybe it's home and career with the fourth house and the 10th house. So we want to take a look at what are the areas that are going to receive the energies of this lunation and be most impacted by it. That could be really helpful to take what we are talking about today and applying it to your individual life. Okay, so the first half of October is pretty charged. There is still Pluto, who's going to be hanging out in early Aquarius for quite a while, really warming us up for this long era, for this future building through really 2044. And already, I mean, we are seeing so much come through in terms of tech and AI, right? And this is only amplified with Uranus moving into Gemini and making an aspect with that Pluto that is kind of bringing this back into our conscious awareness and into the news cycle of like really big things happening in tech and in AI. And that's going to just continue to happen over the next couple of decades, really. I believe we're not going to really recognize the world in the next, 10 to 15 years from now. I just was having a conversation with a couple of folks around schooling. I have a little one, and to for me to think about what life is going to be like for him as he enters that age where, it's the typical university age. I'm, in my perspective, and with my moon in Aquarius and kind of tapping into things, I'm like, universities are not going to exist in the way that we know it by the time that he's ready to go to university. Like, there's so much that is being leveled out in terms of the playing field with education, with online education, and the accessibility of all of that. And then we don't even know what our world is going to look like. So the typical pathways that we traditionally have gone down through university may not even exist or be relevant, right? So really thinking about that level of shift. And it's almost like we have to meet these pivots. We're going to be moving up against so many new paradigms that are going to reveal themselves over the next decade and two. So how can we ensure that we are taking care of the foundations and what it means to be human, right? And there's, that's a whole nother conversation, but I just felt called to speak to that, especially with so much that we are already seeing in terms of like the shifts in tech and with AI. So Neptune is also sitting at 0 degrees of Aries here, where our lunation, the sign that our lunation is happening. And that's the world point here. That's a world point. So these Neptunian themes are very significant and very visible. Neptunian themes include sort of illusionary, like it's hard to really know what is true and what is not, what is real and what is not. I mean, we even see this with AI, right? Like we are in this learning curve now of our brains learning how to distinguish between AI and what is real, like AI generated videos and people and voices versus what is real, what is reality. We also see themes including oceans and waters, and toxins and purification, medicine and immunity. These are all Neptunian types of topics. And then also what we receive through the media and sort of like the media spin, and the dissolution and dissolving of certain concepts and understandings. And like 1 minute we get fed a news feed and then the next minute it's debunked, right? So it's like, what is even real? What can I even believe right now? Which can honestly be incredibly disorienting. And that's a very Neptunian state to be in. And it's happening globally because we have Neptune at the 0 degrees point of Aries. So one thing that when we tap into that energy, because when we're looking at a full moon in any lunation, it's not in isolation. It's within the scope and the context of the rest of the cosmos. So we have to take all of that into account. It's like this stage, and there's multiple things happening on this stage, in the stage of our lives. So Neptune also connects in with oneness and the dissolution of boundaries and dreams, our dreams. And it's hanging out with Saturn for quite a while. And I've talked about how Saturn really feels like, alongside Neptune in its highest expression, that conjunction feels like making the dream real. Dreaming on purpose. What needs to happen for the dream to come into reality, right? Or getting real about whether or not something is an illusion of ours, a deception, right? A pie in the sky, castles in the sky kind of thing, or an actual dream that is aligned with who we are, not based on some false identity or ego or something else, some other force that's coming through that is not you, but actually based on what it is that you desire and who you are. And so taking real world steps in that direction, what does that look like? And that's very Aries energy. It's about taking action. So with this lunation, there might be some awareness or highlighting of something along that path and what action steps we need to take, perhaps in our conversations, right? It becomes illuminated. Now, we also have heard there's this visitor in the sky, a comet, an interstellar object called 3-eye Atlas that has been in the news cycle and has gotten some quite a bit of attention. And the reason why this is significant for astrologers and people that are like astrology enthusiasts, such as myself, is that throughout history we see that comets are actually change bringers. They're harbingers of some sort of shift, and on a world scale. So it's interesting to see what might be going on with these particular interstellar objects and comets that are moving through our awareness, and like what old stories are crumbling, what revelation is going to come to pass. And a lot of folks who are more attuned to we're cosmically sensitive, right, to the galactic and to the cosmos, they're kind of reading this as a system upgrade. One of the many, many, many astrologers that I love, there's so many, Pam Gregory, who's over in the UK, and she brings more of like this a spiritual quality and evolutionary quality with her astrology and her take, and she's a modern astrologer as well as mundane astrologer. And she has been speaking a lot lately about system upgrades, and that's kind of how she is seeing a lot of the movements of these planetary objects in our cosmos and how they might be supporting us and anchoring us back into the heart, the cosmic heart and collective heart. I love that. I love that perspective. And I also feel like there's just a lot of moving parts, and there's a lot of forces that we are being influenced by and navigating. So it'll be interesting to see what this brings. And so if you're feeling a lot of energy, if you're feeling buzzy, I want you to really anchor into that heart space of yours, to tune in, to feel the ground, to remember that you are in this body for a reason, and to breathe into your heart space, into that aspect, that infinite spirit aspect of yourself that is wise, wildly wise, connected with the all, God, source, creator, that has all of the answers that you ever need to know. And it is through you and through your heart that you can access those. So I feel like these times are really just invitations over and over again for us to anchor back into that truth. Now, let's take a look at this lunation in Aries and what is, in terms of the influences and forces that are impacting our experience with this moon. This is an Aries moon, which means that it is ruled by Mars. And Mars currently is in Scorpio. Mars rules Scorpio as well as Aries. And so Mars loves being in Scorpio, could do a lot of wonderful things, in its like Martian kind of way, gets super focused. It's not that loud, flashy, big action kind of Mars as like Mars would be with Aries, sort of that like warrior energy, action oriented, which not to say that Scorpio isn't action oriented, but it's a different vibe, right? Like we're going into the basement. Scorpio and that like Mars and Scorpio, whereas like Mars and Aries is that warrior on the field, on the battlefield, and Mars in Scorpio is the spy that you don't know is there, but yet they're doing their work in the background quietly with precision and doing it really well. Scorpio is highly sensitive and attuned, and Mercury is also entering Scorpio too. So there's this interesting play here. We can connect Mercury with our mental activity and mental chatter, and talking, Mercury talks, the planet of communication and travel that rules also the mind, the nervous system. And so with those two in the same sign, there's something here that is like, we don't want small talk, right? Like we're not thinking surface level things here. We want depth. We want to know the truth. We want to get to what is hidden, what has been buried, the secrets, we want those to surface. The body, the nervous system wants clarity through bringing up the truths and the shit that's been buried that we're ready to transform or alchemize. Scorpio is very much connected with a transformative energy such as the phoenix. And so there's something here that's happening in the background of this lunation with what is being unearthed in this time, and that it has to do with this lunation. Maybe there's some action around digging things up to illuminate potentially, or having conversations that are bringing stuff up, maybe even within your own psyche that you weren't fully consciously aware of, or perhaps with others, with Libra. Either way, there's stuff that is coming up that cannot be hidden anymore, that cannot be suppressed anymore. And it's time to really navigate that and to deal with it if we've been putting it off, even at a subconscious level. So with Pluto in Aquarius talking to Neptune in early Aries, and then we have Uranus in early Gemini, this is, there's probably going to be a lot of revelation because of like the Uranus energy of surprise and shock and awe and shaking things up. And Neptune also like, revealing. There's that dissolution quality and illusion quality to it, but there's also like diving into the spiritual and the unseen with Neptune. So again, bringing that forward. All of these together are very revolutionary energy archetypes. And we see this actually with the chart of the United States, which has very similar configurations that we are repeating and revisiting here. And we see cycles of revolutionary wars happening with these moments in time. So these are different times though, right? Like war looks different. I'm not saying that we are going to enter war, but there is something here around like what does war mean and look like today? Even if it's internally, if it's spiritual warfare, if it's energetic, if it's data, there's so much with that I think will be illuminated over the next decade. And, who knows what we're going to step into over the next few years. One positive note here, not to say that like any of that is bad, but we like the benefics, we like the good things, all right? So let's take a look at what's going on with Jupiter and Venus. So we have Jupiter in Cancer, the great benefic, is exalted, loves being in Cancer, doing great things. So remember to check that your Cancer house in your chart. And Jupiter is in Cancer is squaring Chiron in Aries. Chiron, the wounded healer. So these old identities, because Aries is around identity and self and the I am, right? So Chiron having that like wounded aspect there. Tuning into these old identity wounds, the false identities that we've carried or inherited, and meeting emotional support and alchemy, memory. That's what Cancer is really about, emotional safety, love, nurturance, family, and ancestral support is here as well. So there's something here that feels like it feels very supportive for whatever wounding has been happening in the Aries part of our chart. And that, the healing process is not linear, right? It's really spiralic. And so it feels like we are coming to a point of that healing journey where we're starting to feel the gifts. The gifts are being revealed through this journey of the wounded aspect with Chiron and Aries. And it feels like it has to do with also the blood and like the head. Aries is connected with the head and with the blood and with the heat within our bodies. So it feels like there's something here that wants to be healed and is being healed and soothed almost by the cradle that is Jupiter in Cancer. So taking a look at the areas that that's playing out within your own chart could be really interesting. So then in mid-month of October on the 16th, 17th, we have the sun completing a cardinal T-square and says, look, here is how you can grow. This is not just about noticing and witnessing and feeling and how you feel, but it's about now taking action, aligning actions with your truth, with what you've been saying, walking the talk. And Jupiter in Cancer trining Saturn in Pisces and really tightening toward the 25 degree. I won't get too technical with this, but it feels like there is a level of emotional maturity that is happening with this spiritual backbone that feels really supportive, and that we are working our way there. And so with planets, personal planets sliding into Scorpio later this month, and with that, with Scorpio being a water sign, we're going to have this water grand trine happening. It feels like there's going to be a really deep cleansing and clearing and renewal happening with that this month, later this month. Again, that kind of like Phoenix energy with it. Okay, one last thing that I wanted to speak to, speaking of the benefics, Venus. Venus is currently in Virgo because we are in Libra season. The sun is still in Libra, and with this lunation, and Venus rules Libra, right? So let's take a look at what Venus is doing. Venus has been hanging out in Virgo, and with this lunation is moving into an opposition with Saturn and then Neptune. What does this mean for you? I don't know, because it's like there's something here that feels like maybe reality check. Saturn as the timekeeper, the task keeper, the reality check giver. And there could be some reality checks as it relates to your relationships with love, with finances, what you value, maybe certain plans not working out the way that you had wanted or anticipated. Sometimes it could just feel like, Saturn is kind of like a stop sign. But even though there's that like pause, like Venus can't quite do what she wants to do maybe with this opposition, that isn't always a bad thing. And Venus enters a sextile with Jupiter, which is a very supportive aspect. And remember, Jupiter exalted in Cancer. So there's something here around like, it's okay. Maybe it's actually better for you that it's not working out in that area of your life in the way that you wanted. Sometimes we can look back and say, man, I really wanted that thing, but I'm so glad I didn't get it. And like that maybe was one particular timeline, but it wasn't the timeline. Not that it was a bad timeline, but that it's a timeline that isn't necessarily really aligned with like what your heart truly desires or wants for you and your soul growth. So there's a soft landing here, is what I'm saying, with Venus sextiling Jupiter with that. So even if you don't get what you want in the Virgo area of your chart and with Venus, know that it's okay. There's a deeper lesson here. There's a deeper gift in this. Take care of yourself. Keep self-care very simple. Venus in Virgo is very much about like self-care and purification and clearing things up, eating well. It's just like taking care of yourself. Sleep, ground, bare feet on the earth, sun gazing. Just go back to the basics again of what it means to be human and to support this body. And that'll help support you in regenerating the energy that's required to move forward if you're feeling a little bit depleted or tired, exhausted, or just like, I want to give up, which can sometimes happen, right? When you come to a stop sign or a stoplight, when you were hoping for a green light. Moving forward from there, I want you to take note of October 14th. We'll talk more about this in future episodes, but that's when Pluto is stationing direct. You'll feel the pressure about a week on either side of that. So just take note. That's a big deal that's big power moving out of that particular area and direction and stationing direct. It's like that big ship that's sort of just shifting directions. So take note of the Aquarius area of your life, the early degrees of Aquarius. And this really does feel like, for me with Aquarius, it's so much about connecting in with community. And to be honest, so I have my Aquarius moon at the early degrees of Aquarius. I have been feeling this Plutonic energy very much so. But one of the things that it really has lovingly nudged me toward doing, finally, after years and years of requests, but also of me attempting and then like pulling back, is to actually create a community, to just do the damn thing, And that is the remedy with Aquarius. Aquarius is about the people. It's about connection, and especially with Libra, about connection in this time. So that's why I launched my own community. It's called Bloom, the Bloom Sanctuary, for my intuitive healers out there. And if you're interested to learn more, it's a beautiful space so far. I just opened the doors to the public this past Friday. You could go to wildlyrooted.com/bloom to learn more. We are having monthly calls, a live monthly Akashic Q&A with me, yours truly, where I get to answer your questions in the Akashic records. We also have bi-weekly community connection calls and oracle practice circles. It doesn't matter what level, you can come in. It's a safe space to practice. We have healing exchanges and swaps, and a space where we can gather, connect. And it's really about cultivating that level of sisterhood that healers require, because we know as healers, whether you're a practicing healing artist or practitioner in your vocation or not, maybe you're a healer in your heart, in your role, in your community, in your family, in this society. There's so many different ways that we show up as healers. And so really it's about having a healer's heart, being the light worker that you are in this time. We know that in order for true healing and collective healing, community is a requirement. And yet that's something that so many people long for and yet like resist at the same time. So Bloom is my offering to this greater community of an audience of healers, mystics, light workers, guides, practitioners, to come in and let us support one another. So that is my contribution with this Aquarius energy, with Pluto coming here and stationing direct. If you're interested in learning more, go ahead and click the link in the show notes or go to wildlyrooted.com/bloom, and I would love to see you inside. We also have an upcoming workshop that I'm putting together that is all around connecting with a well ancestor to support us in dissolving what is ready to be released. What the old identities, shit that we've been carrying through our ancestry, through our lineage, through inheritance, that it's time to put that away, to let that go and release. And so we're going to have a special workshop and ceremony together inside of Bloom that you are invited to. And this, of course, just in time for our liminal season that is Samhain, Halloween, Dia de los Muertos. I'm really excited to guide that journey and to play with you in a really beautiful and important way with the veils that are thin. So come join us. Okay, so let's come back to this, bring this all the way to the body with a little bit of medical astrology and some herbal remedies and plant allies that are connected in with Aries. So Aries, as I mentioned, ruled by Mars. The element of Aries is fire. So there's heat. Immediately when we think in terms of the body, we're going to think inflammation, fire, redness, flushing, heat in general. And so those with a lot of Aries energy, they can use that fire for action. If you got a lot of Aries in your chart, then I can pretty much guarantee that you're very action oriented. You need to move your body, you're physical, like you do things, you get things done. And so that's what that heat and energy is meant to be utilized for. If you do not have an outlet, then it's going to build up and you might burn out or get inflamed. So I see this a lot with my Aries folks. You need to take care and allow yourself to move that energy. That energy needs to go somewhere. And Aries is a cardinal sign. It's the beginning of a season, initiating a season. So there's that initiatory energy with Aries, and the season, of course, spring in the northern hemisphere, autumn in the southern hemisphere, and it's the spring equinox with Aries. We have the tissue states that are connected in with Aries. Heat excitation. Now, this is through the energetic system of traditional Western herbalism. Heat excitation is exactly what I'm talking about. It's that inflammatory kind of energy that can be helpful. I mean, there is a reason for inflammation in the healing cycle. And yet, if it runs amok, then that's when we get problems. The body systems connected with Aries include the head. It's the beginning, the top, the head, the face, especially the forehead. We also see the nose and the eyes. The brain is connected in, including like the blood vessels and the blood in that system. The muscles and the muscular system is also connected in with Aries. So when we see imbalances with my Aries folks, there tends to be inflammation, particularly in those areas. So we might see that as headaches, tension headaches, migraine. We could see eruptions on the face or in the skin, acne, rashes. There might be some eyesight issues with the eyes, fever, and like that flush fever that comes to the head. Liver fire rising through the traditional Chinese medicine lens is the inflammation that we see with the head that is actually arising from the liver. But what's going on with the liver that is allowing that energy and that fire to rise? Well, the liver is very much connected with anger and suppressed anger, which is, a very Martian quality here. So we need to also pay attention to our liver with our Aries folks who are not expressing themselves, although we typically don't see that as a problem with Aries people. But if for some reason, like you are holding back or you are suppressing, like then that's when we can definitely see the liver issues in connection with that. We might also see ruptured blood vessels, especially in the head too. And like we can see any kind of issue really with the inflammation and disruption with the heat in the head. That can look like many different things. It could look like brain fog. It could look like memory loss. It could look like swelling in the head. But we want to check in elementally. How does it feel in the body? Am I feeling red? Am I getting red? Am I feeling the heat of something, of like an emotion? And so noticing that, because that's how we can differentiate between different types of, for example, swelling or issues. Like you may have 5 different reasons why your head hurts. So tuning into the elemental nature that's happening within you. Again, are you feeling angry? Are you feeling like you can't take action on something? We may also see this expressed in the muscles. I mentioned the muscular system. So especially the face, maybe like some tics or TMJ, tightness in the jaw. But we can see this throughout the body and like the muscles in particular. So what is it that we want to bring in to support Aries and an imbalanced Aries or a weakened Aries? Well, cooling remedies, of course, and very often hydrating remedies too. Because of so much heat, there is a tendency to be dehydrated. And so we want to bring in replenishment of moisture and hydration and cooling remedies and activities, including cooling herbs, cooling foods. Think of cucumber, aloe, and we'll speak to the herbs in just a moment. You could bring this in the form of teas and bath. One thing that I highly recommend for my Aries people, and really anybody who has a tendency to get like a lot of headaches or heat in the head, but even if you're experiencing like inflammation or pain in the rest of the body, so much stems from the brain and the brain on fire, inflammation in the brain. So bring in a cooling pack or an ice pack and put it on your head, or take a cold or cooling shower. And that can really help to downgrade that heat activity that's happening systemically in the rest of your body. And it's not a complete panacea, of the root of the issue, but it can be something that can assist you while you're in an acute moment of pain or inflammation. We also want to relax the nerves, bring in those moistening herbs and foods, as I'd mentioned, in case there is some dehydration or excess dryness from all of that heat. And then some stillness, maybe there's too much activity, but in general, movement is good. So maybe it's not super high intensity. Maybe it's more like Tai Chi or Qigong, right? So different type, like martial energy, but you working with the energy flow versus overdoing it, because there can be a tendency to overdo. I typically see those with a lot of Aries energy, amazing athletes, just like so good at sports, and the athleticism is really high. There's a lot of energy, there's brightness, there's courage, there's initiation, spontaneity, there's that vitality that is there. We want to support that, right? We want to support that, but not overdo things. So some of the herbs that are connected in with Aries, well, the ones that are like the guardian herbs and have that beautiful heat that can bring sort of that Aries energy if you are needing more of that, are the ones that have that heat, right? So like ginger, nettle, also like even just thinking about the spikiness, the tingles that we get, the stings from the stinging nettles, and the blood that rushes to that and how medicinal that can be. And ginger, as that it's a very heating herb and root, and rhizome, except that it's also anti-inflammatory, which seems counterintuitive. But ginger has such a beautiful way of supporting us with downgrading that that kind of pathological heat and inflammation that can result in pain. All of our hot peppers are also included in this picture. I do see that those, if you look at it through the Ayurvedic tradition and lens, this would be the Pitta. Aries is Pitta, that heat. And Pitta folks are really go for the heating foods and can be addicted to like hot sauce and hot peppers and ginger and things like that. I have seen that time and time again. So just noticing your tendency, you can overdo it with that. Maybe just bring it back or pair it with something that is cooling and moistening. Now, if there is too much heat here, then the remedy herbs that can be really supportive are the cooling ones. There's so many different cooling herbs that you can bring in. There's eucalyptus, there's vervain, hawthorn is really beautiful, especially if it's around heart issues. But the one that I want to speak to today is yarrow. I've mentioned yarrow in many episodes in the past, but there's so much to say about yarrow. And yarrow is just one of those herbs and flowers that there's so much available through yarrow and through a multi-dimensional experience with yarrow that you could talk about yarrow for years on end, right? And you can have a whole podcast about yarrow, I feel, in all the different aspects. So yarrow, the wounded warrior's herb. This is one of my go-tos when there's the overabundance of that Aries or Martian energy, like running hot, running amok. And Aries ruling the head and the blood of the head. So we see like nosebleeds. Also, I didn't mention that, but we might see that in general. And Mars governing heat and inflammation and those like red urgent flashes in the system and rashes. Aries, when Aries is in balance, we're going to see that redness, maybe the splotches and the red tongue. The tongue can get red and pointed. We might feel like the rapid pulse in our bodies, the fevers that don't go away, eruptions on the skin, eczema, like things are just like, hot, fire, right? The heat is trapped, and sometimes we need movement and alchemizing of that heat within the body, within the liver. Yarrow knows how to do this. Yarrow knows both sides of that story. Yarrow is a master of the blood. Yarrow can slow down bleeding when it's too much. It can move stagnant blood when it's stuck. Yarrow can open up the skin to sweat and release the heat and then settle things back down when needed. A hot Yarrow tea can really invite a gentle sweat if you're in need of that. That can help to regulate the fevers, the stubborn fevers that just won't go away. And not to say that I'm never about suppressing a fever. It needs to go through its natural cycle. But sometimes we do need some gentle support in like nudging the fever to really move through. Cooler preparations of Yarrow tend to really focus more inward, so supporting digestion, the kidneys. It's interesting because there's a paradox with so many different herbs, and there is so with Yarrow as well, where you can get a cooling and warming energy with Yarrow. It could be mobilizing yet regulating. There is really depending on what your body needs, it's kind of adaptogenic in that way. And that's why I love it for Aries conditions, because it's not about eliminating the heat for Aries. It's about being smart with the heat and reteaching or nudging and guiding the body and how to move that heat and work with the heat in a wise way. Energetically, I experience Yarrow like just a wise elder, talking to maybe like a hyped up Aries teenager, like, slow down, babe, slow down, feel life, feel that energy, feel that ebb and flow, and that you are allowed to rest. And sometimes we need to create those spaces for us to rest. Otherwise, you'll just keep going and trust that like you will get going again. That's your nature. So there's this restoration of a sense of homeostasis within for the fiery folks, which I just totally love. A few traditional indications where Yarrow really shines. You're going to see acute fevers, like I mentioned, with a rapid pulse, maybe some flushing to the head, bright nosebleeds, and heat and congestion in the liver, that liver fire rising, and the headaches that are coming from that, or migraines. We might have also some hot, irritated digestive states and uterine patterns that also are maybe too much flow or too little flow with menstruation. And there's so much to say about Yarrow in general, but when we're talking about Aries, boundaries matter. Yarrow is a master with boundaries. The Yarrow flower essence is a beautiful ally for my sensitive healers who pick up on everything. And I believe that's why Lotus Way, one of my favorite flower essence providers, and I've had Katie Hess, the creator of Lotus Way, on the podcast, if you want to search for her. She's amazing. But in their remedies, they have Yarrow in almost every single one, because Yarrow is like the master alchemist and that wise elder that is just highly protective and really supportive for those who are sensitives, and especially for healers. So it helps you to keep your field intact when you're working with others, when you're in an open area or community with others. It's kind of like a psychic skin that's really supportive. It's not completely open, but you're also not leaking. Like you're not completely shutting out the world. It's like that really healthy gut permeability that we want, where we're allowing the good things in and the things that are nutritious and nutrient dense and that we need, but we're not allowing the things that we're not supposed to take in or that are not ours. So practical ways to work with Yarrow for the folks that are herb curious. Many traditions use the flowering tops of Yarrow. A simple infusion and tea covered while it steeps really helps to preserve the aromatics. Again, warm for sweating and releasing trapped heat, cool for more digestive and kidney support. Tiny tincture doses does the job as well. Other herbalists may go a little bit higher. I tend to go less because I work with a lot of sensitives, people who are sensitive. So less is more in many cases. So it's really about tuning in, working with a trusted practitioner and herbalist, especially if you're pregnant or on meds or you have a really complex picture and you want a customized approach. If you are lit up right now under this moon, you might love a simple Yarrow ritual this week and tonight. Warm the body, make a cup of Yarrow tea, or maybe get a Yarrow flower essence. Step outside if you can, let the moonlight touch your face, and hold your head, touch your head, your forehead, one hand on your forehead, one palm on your heart. Take a sip or take your tincture. Name what's coming up, notice the heat in your body, and simply be present with your body, present with yourself and what's coming up through your head and your mind. One last thing, I wanted to bring out one of my favorite oracle decks, the Herbal Astrology Oracle deck by Adriana Ayales. If you are watching this episode on YouTube, which I didn't mention this, by the way, for those who are listening to the podcast and don't know that I have a YouTube channel, I'm at Wildly Rooted Spirit. You could find the Feed Your Wild podcast over there, as well as other videos that I'll be making. So you'll see I'm holding up Adriana's Oracle deck, which I just absolutely adore because she combines the astrology with the herbs. And so here we're going to pick for the collective message for this lunation. I'm just doing it live on the spot. Okay, making up some space here. And we have 49 psilocybin commune. And if you're watching on YouTube, you could see the picture here. Psilocybin commune. So talk about community, commune. Let's take a look at what Adriana has to say. Communing with the sacred, connecting to otherworldly energy, remote viewing, regeneration through union, coming together with a tribe, finding cosmic family. The Mesoamerican cultures such as the Olmec, Zapotec, Maya, and Aztec have used psilocybin in rituals for over 10,000 years. The Aztec referred to psilocybin mushrooms as teonatnatcatl. Hopefully I said that somewhat right, meaning flesh of the gods in Nahuatl. They believed Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent and creator deity, placed the mushroom on earth as a gift. These sacred vision-inducing mushrooms were and are revered by indigenous peoples as a gateway to the realm of the gods and a way to receive deep spiritual insights and inspiration. Now she goes into speaking more. I'm not going to talk about all the things here. I encourage you to get her oracle deck. I really love it. Guidance. Los Niños Santos, which, just background, Maria Sabina, who is a Mazatec curandera, or was a Mazatec curandera, although, we never really go away. We're infinite spirits and beings. She called the mushrooms Niños Santos, or holy children. So Los Niños Santos have come to tell you that you have arrived to your place of power. They are beacons of light on earth and offer psychic healing on a collective level. By the way, the astrological ruler that she has for the psilocybin is Pluto and the sun. Interesting, we've been talking a lot about Pluto and Aquarius here. and that community aspect. Los Niños Santos are asking you to tune in and commune with the ancestors and powers that be to further develop your power. Psilocybin floods our body with light codes, loosening the knots we volunteered to protect through the journey of life. Don't resist the profound teachings. Relax into higher mind as you commune with its loving awareness. As you find home within community with others and experiences that support you, connect to nature and the extensive community of energies that are lovingly there awaiting your conscious arrival. Commune with the spirits and channel the wisdom provided with sure-footed spontaneity. I mean, how perfect we have that message of community and also communing with the ancestors. So if it speaks with you, I would love to invite you in to Bloom. We are closing doors in this cycle, October 20th. And we also have our upcoming workshops. If you sign up before then, you will get this workshop included, and there's no contracts. You can cancel anytime, so you can leave whenever you'd like. But I will be hosting this workshop of connecting with well ancestors and guiding us in this alchemy process toward the end of the month. So it's here, Pluto and Aquarius, guiding us there. I am so excited to dive in deeper with you. I hope that this was supportive. Let me know any ahas, insights that came up for you in the comments below. If you're watching this on YouTube, reach out to me over on Instagram. I'm at Wildly Rooted. And make sure you subscribe and stay tuned for future episodes. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Full moon blessings to you and all my love. Be well.